37 years of age, out of shape, doesn't train, thinks Willard is a pushover. He comes to Havana and fights him on April 15, 1915 in 105-degree heat in a scheduled 45-round fight.
And now rounds are 3 minutes at that point. We're not talking about where they used to have quick engagements and that would be one round or a guy gets knocked down, end of a round. Real rounds. You think that fight was on the up and up?
Quickly, Johnson gets knocked out in the 26th round. He then sells a confession. I threw the fight to Nat Fleischer, who never believed it, again, the publisher of Ring. There was something going on. His wife had left the arena. She either got money or couldn't stand to see him beaten. You take your pick. Number two of which is he never got off the Mann Act. But number three was a photographic shot of Willard standing over Johnson. Johnson with his hand over his eyes and his legs off the canvas in 105-degree heat, saying, well, he's shielding his eyes from the sun. That looks awfully suspicious.
Is that, though?
And yet, if you look at a picture of Billy Conn getting knocked out in the second fight in 46 by Joe Louis, his reflexes are such that his hand's in exactly the same spot.
Okay.
That fight, by the way, the Louis-Conn second fight, Jack Johnson was coming to it.
Really?
He was driving to it in his roadster, refused service in a North Carolina diner because he was black. Spun out of the driving lot, the parking lot, against off gravel, lost control of the car, hit a telephone pole, and was killed. One writer, line in the obituary the next morning read, Jack Johnson died today, crossing the white line for the last time.
Let me throw some names at you, guys who didn't make the top 10. Evander Holyfield didn't make your top 10. Where's Evander?
He's on the cusp. He's number 11. He's one of the greats. He's in my book, Boxing's Greatest Fighters. He just didn't make the top 10 heavyweights.
All right. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, what, 9 title defenses? I'm talking about in the first reign, 7 by knockout, cleaned out the division. Now, again, it didn't end well for him, but what about Tyson?
He had 5 years. That was it. Whenever he'd face another great, he didn't do too well. Maybe Michael Spinks was the only time. But ask Lennox Lewis, who's another one we'll discuss, Evander. And again, you rub up against other greatness, and if you don't win, you're not a great.
Where do you have Tyson, though?
I'd have him about 14 or 15.
14, okay, that's fair. Although maybe up around 12, but I'm not sure. All right, Lennox Lewis. And now here's back to my thing where put in Lennox Lewis, in reality, 6'5", 250, with his hand speed. How would he do against the all-time greats? Where's Lennox?
Lennox would be in the top 20. That's about as high. Really, he didn't have the greats to fight. And by the time he got to Evander, he was way over the hill.
Right.
And so was Mike Tyson. But by the same token, I can't take somebody from one generation or one era and pit him against another. This is greats in their era.
Right.
Otherwise, I've got apples and oranges. Granted, it's a bar question. There's a bar argument. Speaking
Where
of
is
that,
Lennox?
where's the bar?
Where's
I'm more concerned with the bar than Lennox.
You're moments away here, but where is Lennox if you had to put him in your top 20?
19 or 20.
Behind Tyson.
Yes.
Even despite what happened.
In their peak.
And they're very, but they're close in age, and yet when they fought, it wasn't close.
When they fought, it wasn't Tyson.
Okay, that's true.
When I did my book, Boxing's Greatest Fighters, I did not even have Lennox, ironically, in the top 100 of all time.
Really?
All fighters.
Oh, man, you got to make an addendum on that book. All right, and Jim Jeffries.
Well, okay,
quickly,
you won't buy it.
Jeffries, of course, I would hope you would comp me there. All right, so what about Jeffries? Where's Jeffries, Jim Jeffries?
He would be number 17.
Okay, so
behind
he's there.
Corbett and Sullivan.
All right, had a good time. We'll let Bert go. All right, Bert, thank you so much. Hey, we had a great time here at Gleason's Gym. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll be here again, and we'll see you here on ESPN Classic. That's been our top 10 heavyweights ringside here at Gleason's Gym. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Back here at Gleason's Gym, Brian Kenny, Burt Randolph, Sugar. It's ringside top 10 heavyweights. We are ready for number 3. Jack Dempsey checks in at number 3 for Burt. Why Jack Dempsey so high?
Greatest attraction in the history of boxing. Drew crowds 120,000, up to 120,000, made $1 million a fight. But it was better than that. He laid endwise 60 opponents, including exhibition in the first round in his career. 60.
An exciting guy to watch. Hard guy.
He was the most exciting thing ever in boxing, really. Fought like an avenging angel of death. Beat everyone with a left hook from hell. And he was taught that left hook by Jack Doc Kearns, who met him way back when he was a hobo, traveling the rails.
How rough was his upbringing? I mean, I mean, he was living just and fighting for food, right? How bad was it for him?
He was fighting in saloons on sawdust floors. He was making a meal, maybe. The only fight he ever was knocked out in against Jim Fireman Flynn, he hadn't eaten in 4 days. But he was fighting for anything. He meets Jack Doc Kearns, who becomes his manager and teaches him how to use a left hook by tying his right hand behind him. And Jack Dempsey comes out with the most ferocious left hook in the history of boxing, including Joe Frazier's. And he now comes to New York. And through dint of picking the right fights, dare I say, continues to rise up the ladder and becomes the challenger for Jess Willard.
How active was Willard at this point? He had defended how many times since getting the title from Jack Johnson?
He wins it in 1915, defends it once, puts it under his arm, and goes home to Potawatomi, Kansas.
Sitting on the title.
Yes.
Okay.
And Dempsey earns the title shot by knocking out Fred Fulton, the #1 contender, in 18 seconds, and Carl Morris, the #2 contender, in 14 seconds. That's pretty good.
Taking it by force.
Yes, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And now he gets the fight July 4th, 1919, against Jess Willard. Now, Jess Willard is a man-mountain, 6'6" and a half. And Tex Rickard, who's putting on the fight in Toledo, Ohio, goes into Dempsey's dressing room before the fight and says, "You better be careful. This man has killed a man," and he had, Bull Young. He said he's tough, he's rough, he beat Jack Johnson. Dempsey just looks at him. Comes the fight, and it's in enormous heat. I mean, it's the worst heat wave in the history of the Midwest on July 4th. Comes out, after one little tap, he throws that left hook. Willard goes down, his jaw broken in 7 places.
One shot.
One shot. Knocks down Willard 7 times in the first round. All of a sudden, the bell rings and nobody hears it in the tumult and the screaming of all the fans. And Dempsey leaves the ring. His manager, Doc Kearns, is jumping up and down. He's got 10-1 odds that he'll knock him out in the first round. But in those days, unlike today, the count did not continue beyond the bell. The bell is the end of the count. Willard lives to fight 2 more rounds, and that's it. And he's in the end of the 3rd round, he's sitting there saying, "I have a farm in Kansas. I have a farm in Kansas." That's all he's got. Dempsey has now become the biggest thing on the sports landscape, including Babe Ruth. In fact, Paul Gallico, who basically created and called it the golden age of sports, has Dempsey as the first person in there and the highest, and Babe Ruth second before Red Grange, Tilden, and Bobby Jones. And Jim Murray, of recent vintage, 15 years ago, writing for the Los Angeles Times, said, when Dempsey retired, they retired the title champ. That's how great he was.
You have Dempsey Firpo as one of your greatest fights of all time.
Ever.
How? So that's your #1 fight.
The
all right?
greatest ever.
It was a burner. Explain that fight.